I was getting ready to film my latest collection update video, and I was going through my bracelet collection, which is an entire giant box filled with bracelets. And I realized that there's actually so much that I want to show you from that box that doesn't quite fit into the normal collection updates. Of course, I have a playlist for the normal collection updates. You can watch those videos and literally see every single bracelet within my collection, other than a few that I gave away maybe. But today I want to show you specifically some of my most nostalgic bracelets. I also recently did a video where I showed you a bunch of my multicolored friendship bracelets. So if you want to see a collection video specifically about that, I'll leave that linked in the card and in the description. I've been making bracelets for over 15 years and that makes me feel so old, but I was 11 when I started. So there are a lot of bracelets in there. Let's have a look at some of my most nostalgic ones. I already had so much fun just picking out the bracelets from the box. I have no idea if I'm going to be able to cover all of these. This might be a little bit ambitious, but as always, there's going to be an extended version for my members. The extended version includes bits where I ramble that I usually cut out for the regular videos. So if you want to check that out and get access to exclusive content as well, becoming a member is a great way to get some perks and support the channel. Let's get started. This is kind of gross. It definitely needs a wash. I think this used to belong to my mum and she used to wear it on her purse. I don't remember why she gave it back to me, but for some reason I have it. This is a very old one and I really like it. I think this was my first ever attempt at making a keychain, and I like that I went from red to purple on this side and then from purple to red on the other. I think that's really fun. I actually do 100% remember the pattern for this one, and I also remember that I made a tutorial on Bracelet Book, like a photo tutorial on Bracelet Book for how to make a keychain like this. I'm not convinced this is the best method of making a keychain because you can't really swivel the ring and it can be quite difficult to kind of attach things onto it. There are probably better methods out there, but this is a method, and if you want a tutorial, it exists. But I love this one, and you can see how I also kind of struggled a little bit with the width of it because, I mean, this is very obviously not straight, you know? It gets a lot thinner towards the end, and you're gonna see that kind of throughout these bracelets. A lot of them are very old, and there are little imperfections here and there, but it doesn't make them any less special. This is another one from that same era. This is probably one of my favorite creations of all time. I just really love this pattern. I think it's a really cute pattern. It's the same on both sides. The one side feels a little cleaner than the other. I don't remember who used this one. Maybe it was also my mum or maybe my sister, I'm not sure. But this is just a really cute pattern. I mean, look at it. It's adorable. But it was also, you can see how that separates there? This was also made without the use of the flat alpha technique, which in turn kind of stitches parts of the bracelet together. And so these parts of the bracelet aren't actually connected. It's not a bracelet, it's a keychain, but you get my point. They're not actually connected. These two base strings operate as individual strings, and it's especially obvious in those parts where you have like just straight vertical where the colors change. Like you can very much tell. Whereas in other places, like, yeah, I can separate it and you can tell, but it doesn't, you know, the vertical part of it is even more dramatic. We have another keychain with another heart and also mine and my husband's initials. Let's see, yep, it also separates at parts. I mean, maybe I shouldn't do that to it. I don't remember if this pattern existed or if I made it up myself. I think I made this pattern up myself. I'm not 100% sure. But this was also obviously in my keychain era. I would say that this is probably, like all of these are probably around 2013, somewhere within that time frame. Stefan and I started dating in 2012, which we will see in another bracelet later on. And I made it in our two colors. I always went by yellow, he always went by purple. So always yellow and purple is also kind of a theme within our bracelets. I don't think either of us wore this, but I made it and it's cute and I like it. Speaking of the flat alpha technique, by the way, this is the same exact pattern made twice. First, I made this one, and I made this for the regular alpha tutorial that I did, which I now don't recommend people watch. When I did the flat alpha tutorial, I remade the entire tutorial from scratch, and I explained it in a way that is actually a lot better. I don't think this is a good way of making alphas, because again, it's that kind of separation issue. Like those base strings aren't actually connected because there is no through line, you know, connecting them. So these knots, like that green thing on Saturn, is very much separate from everything else. I can probably even like pull it out, though I don't want to do that. And it also creates kind of a very bumpy bracelet. Like, I don't know if you can see it, but the planets very much stick out. Like if I just run my finger over it, I can very much tell, even with my eyes closed, where the patterns, like where the planets are. Whereas on this one, it's all flat and there's nothing sticking out. I don't know where the planets are. Actually, this one I can still feel a little bit because there's a color switch with green, but in general, I can't really feel where the planets are. And the difference in the techniques, as I said, like this one, you just put the string behind when you switch colors and that's it. Whereas with this one, you thread it through the next knot, and thus throughout the design, all of your strings are kind of connected. The minus of this technique, if you look really closely, you can occasionally see colors still peeking through. Like there's a little bit of green there where there shouldn't be. I'm very nitpicky, but still. There's a little bit of pink, a little bit of green before the two knots there where there really shouldn't be. So occasionally you get colors peeking through, like there's a little bit of white before that red at the bottom. And you don't get it so much with this technique, but still, this is very much still better and still fixable. If you notice it in time, you can kind of pull the string down and it won't come out. This is not meant to be a tutorial, nor is it meant to be any kind of educational video. I'm just kind of going through my bracelets with you, but since it's come up, why not? This used to be one of my favorite patterns of all time, pretty much. Still is, really. Second only probably to the pattern that I just made for my grandmother. I did a video making bracelets for my family members recently, and my grandma selected that I make this space-themed bracelet for her, and it was really cool. I actually think I prefer that one to this one because that one is actually realistic to the solar system. Anyway, I really love space-themed bracelets, so, you know, I remade this tutorial with the exact same pattern, and I love the pattern, and I think it looks really cool. And it also kind of speaks to, like, you know, just me re-recording that tutorial. It speaks to the fact that, yes, I've been making bracelets for like 15 plus years. Yes, I've been making video tutorials for several years as well now, but I'm still learning throughout the process. Like, I don't know everything there is to know. And so as I learn more things, you know, I recorded this tutorial and then I found out about this technique and that this is actually better and this is actually how you're probably supposed to do it in the first place. So I re-recorded that tutorial. Constantly evolving. Kind of a similar thing with this bracelet as well. I recorded a Not With Me for this pattern and it started off really well and it started off really smooth and then it went really wonky and then it went even more wonky, and obviously, you know, it's very wonky. I don't even need to bring a ruler to this for you to understand how wonky this is. Like, what, how did that happen? Yeah, that's just a bit crazy. To answer the question, actually, first of all, it is the strings. I'm using a different kinds of strings here. There is a yarn, which is a lot thicker. There are regular embroidery floss, and there is this twisted kind of craft cord floss as well. So all of them are different thickness. They produce different sized knots as well. So it's a lot more difficult to keep your alpha bracelets consistent when your strings produce different sized knots. It's less important in normal bracelets because they're a little bit easier to keep consistent. But with alpha bracelets, you need the rows to be the same. If you're gonna make one row that's gonna go a little bit off, that's kind of gonna affect all the other rows. So that's number one. And number two, I think I was tensing my knots a little bit too hard. Like, this bracelet is really hard. Knot tension is something that's really difficult to get right. You need to make sure that your knots are tight enough so that they don't become loose and so there's not gaps in between them, but you also want to make them just loose enough that they're still malleable and not as hard as this. I can slap it and it makes a noise. That's not normal. And I think I was overcompensating. I think I started out with really loose knots and then I proceeded to make my knots too tight, which resulted in this. And that can make your bracelet really wonky really quickly as well because your knot tension is just all over the place. It doesn't allow any wiggle room for when you introduce new strings and new colors. And it also, because I'm dragging these strings across all of the bracelet, like nowadays, I try to do separate strings for this kind of stuff. Like if there's a lot of a color on the left, I'll do a separate string for this part and then a separate string for the stars probably, but I was using the same string here and it just resulted in a lot of that string dragging across. Anyway, all that to say, I learnt, I improved, and I made another one. I don't know, I think it was a year later or something. I'm pretty sure I did a video for this one too, but look at that improvement. I used the same brand of strings throughout, which is a little bit more boring because obviously the yarn that I used here is sparkly. I actually don't know if you can see that very well, but the white here is sparkly and I wanted that kind of effect for the snow. And I think it does look really cool. And obviously this one doesn't have it, so it's a little bit more boring, but it's straight. And I improved on my knot tension. And I find this interesting. I find it interesting to make the same pattern after some time to see your improvement. It can be a really great visual progress to literally just remake the same thing. So this is also very nostalgic to me. I remember filming these videos. I was really frustrated with this one, but I posted it anyway for transparency's sake. And then I tried it again and it was better. Now this one is nostalgic for a very obvious reason. This is the first English tutorial that I ever filmed on this channel. The fishbone chevron bracelet. The first video that I ever filmed in English. It's the first video that any kind of popularity. It actually got really popular quite quickly. And by that I mean, I think it got like 20,000 views in the first 3 or 4 days. And then it just continued to grow in popularity. And it really was what kind of kickstarted the whole channel. I made the same bracelet again in a different color scheme. All the same colors, I just started with the purple rather than with the red. I think this is the bracelet that inspired me to create the whole channel. Like, obviously I created the channel earlier. I filmed a few videos in Russian before I ever started doing them in English. But this pattern was one that I just saw tutorial and I saw how cool it was, and I realized that it was only 2 rows. And mind you, when I filmed this tutorial, I had only really learned how to segment knot myself. Like I had only just figured out that you don't have to read patterns row by row. And so when I saw this, I realized that it was just 2 repeating rows rather than, you know, being super complicated as it looked. I knew that I could film a tutorial for it, and I knew that it would be really cool. Plus it's just an amazing design, isn't it? It's so cool. So genuinely, if you've never made this bracelet before, it's also interchangeable. You don't have to use this many colors. I mean, obviously if you want it to be a rainbow, I would use at least 6 colors, but you can do it in any kind of color combination and use as many colors as you want and still do the same shape. Like it's a chevron shape and then it's forward, backward, and backward, forward knots. I mean, watch the tutorial for like a more detailed explanation than that, but in general, it's just that. So this bracelet is very nostalgic to me, and you can also see that, see, these ones are kind of very floppy. Like if I slap it, it doesn't slap because it's very floppy. But this is what I mean. Like I started off with my knots really loose, and that annoyed me because you can kind of like pull it apart. I don't know why you would do that, but you can, and it will like let light through it. And that really annoyed me. So I overcompensated, made them too tough. And then eventually I found a middle ground, and I'm actually quite happy with my knot tension at the moment. But this is an amazing bracelet. I need to speed up. I am absolutely rambling. I'm gonna show you some of our couples related bracelets. This was a bookmark that I made with the date that Stefan and I started dating. I think I made it in 2013, maybe 2014. I'm not 100% sure, but definitely at least a year into our relationship. And I think I designed this pattern myself based on an alphabet pattern that someone had like with numbers on it. I took that pattern and I kind of combined it myself, added hearts to it, etc. But this is the date that we started dating. We've been together for 13 years this year. And again, our colors were purple and yellow, so I made it in purple and yellow. But yeah, again, this pattern very much separates because I did not connect anything here. And it is also very bumpy. Like you can see how bumpy it is. Like it goes in where the hearts are and then up again. Again, it's really hard. It's the knot tension. So I guess it kind of went the other way. I was making them really soft, then I made them really hard again, then I made them really soft again, and then I made them really hard again, and then I settled somewhere in the middle. So I just went through ups and downs with the entire knot tension thing. You'll see that later on as well when I show you more bracelets. Here is the first couple bracelets that we wore. I'm gonna let you guess which one was worn by me and which one was worn by Stefan, just from the, yeah. I mean, to be fair, this one is also really messed up, like it's completely torn, but we wore this non-stop. Like they are fused. There is no way you can even untie this. Like I did not bother with ties back in the day. Also didn't bother with any kind of start. I just started my bracelets from nothing pretty much. It's also broken in places, several places, and you can very obviously tell that I ran out of the shade of purple that I was using, and I tried using one of the strings with a different shade. And this one is just so dirty and disgusting. I don't think we took them off for a solid year, and I just did not wash his at all. I remember washing mine. I actually remember losing mine after washing mine once because I think someone moved it when it was drying. But yeah, again, purple and yellow. But yeah, we wore this probably for a solid year, and then I ended up replacing them, and I made these ones. And with these ones, I can't actually tell which one is whose. I'm guessing the longer one is probably Stefan's. But interestingly, one is not dirtier than the other, but they are still different despite being made out of the exact same strings. Like this one is a lot clearer and crisper. Like this one just looks, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but this one just looks a little bit more fuzzy because it's like the fibers of the strings have been kind of, I don't know, worn down. Yeah, it is still very dirty, and so is that one. They need a good wash. I obviously replaced strings here, but that's also fused to the back. We wore these also for a really long time. I don't remember how long. And then these ones I also did loops for, whereas I didn't make loops for the original ones. I also, for some reason, used to make overhand knots after the loop every single time. There was also no reason to do that. And then this one, the tie completely snapped off, and that was probably when we stopped wearing them. But I still have them. We don't wear couples bracelets anymore. We wear wedding rings, which potentially is better, but I also kind of miss wearing couples bracelets. I'm gonna bring it up to Stefan. Maybe we should wear them again. I'll make us a new pair. Moving on to more bracelets that have completely fused and are also hanging on by a thread. I genuinely did not bother with any kind of ties. I knotted it together and I was like, cool, I can still slide this on. Oh my god, I can. This has not been on my wrist in over a decade. But this is probably one of the first candy stripes I ever made. I absolutely love the color scheme. Like red, orange, and yellow used to be my jam, and I used to wear this with a chevron, but I don't seem to have that chevron here. It's kind of sad. I do have another bracelet here. Oh no, I do! There is the chevron! Oh, Oh, that's so cool. Let me see if I can put this one on. It's a challenge, but I think I can. Yes, oh my God. Oh, I'm gonna wear these for the remainder of this video, but look at them. I used to wear these two exactly just like this all the time. These are two of the first bracelets I've ever created, and if you look closely at the chevron, you can see many mistakes there. There's incorrect knots that I made. There's a lot of the same like color popping through in the same place. So obviously I struggled with kind of right after that color change. I think I struggled with the colors popping through in that spot, which if you didn't know, if a color pops through and you notice it, you can pull on the string of the color that is popping through that shouldn't be there, and it should pop back into place. If you watch my tutorials, I occasionally show that within the tutorials. This is so cute. This genuinely brings back memories because I used to wear exactly these two bracelets in this exact way on my left wrist all the time, and I don't think I've worn them in over a decade for both of them. So they probably need a wash, but I'm gonna wear them. This is another bracelet from the same time period. This one has even more mistakes, but they're less noticeable because it's supposed to be kind of a chaotic design anyway. If I didn't say earlier, I'm gonna try to leave all the patterns in the description, but for this one, for example, I'm not sure what the pattern is, so maybe I won't be able to find it. In which case, if you know a pattern and you see that it's not linked in the description, then please drop it in the comments and I'll update it. But like this one, you can see that there's two red knots here, and one of them is for some reason a lot bigger than the other. Like there's colors popping through where they shouldn't be in several places. There's just like completely incorrect knots that are just the wrong size. There's for some reason 3 knots of dark blue here where there obviously shouldn't be. Like there's a lot of mistakes, but it's less noticeable. I remember making this on a camping trip with my school. I was sitting by the campfire and I was making this bracelet, and again, the tie situation is just absolutely ridiculous. What is this? Why is there 2 separate knots? Why are they like this? What is this? I don't know. There's more chevrons. This one I remember making in Florida when I was visiting my aunt. Now when I go to Florida, I visit my aunt, my uncle, my cousins, my grandma, and my grandpa, but at the time it was just my aunt. My grandparents moved to Florida later on, and my uncle wasn't in my aunt's life yet, thus my cousins didn't exist yet. So it was just me and my grandma, who didn't live in Florida at the time, visiting my aunt, and I made this bracelet while I was in Florida. So this is also what I was talking about, where you're gonna see the knot tension later on as well. So this was originally, like you can see how different this is already, you know? Like this is already, you can see that there's a point here where something changed. This used to be an unfinished bracelet, and again, my starts were just phenomenal at the time. Like what is this? I at least could have left like more string so that I can make ties out of it later or somehow work with it. I just left a tiny little piece. I don't know why I thought that was fine to do. But this used to be an unfinished bracelet I made up until here. You can see how stretchy it is. The knots were very loose. And then I picked it up years down the line and I finished the bracelet as I normally would, again at the time. And this is how I ended up making it. And see how much thinner that is in comparison to the beginning, and how much tighter those knots are, because like it is still somewhat stretchy. Like I can somewhat pull it, but this one is straight up bouncy at the beginning, you know? And so it's a lot thinner, it's a lot closer together. And then I finished it off with a triangle end and twisted ties as I normally would. There were a few more bracelets that I did within that same time period, and this is actually for a video as well, so I'll link that video if you want to watch it. But there was this one that used to be an unfinished start as well. There's like the hearts that I then ended up finishing. I only made a few, I must have run out of string or something. But see how different those hearts are as well? Like they're a lot closer together, they're a lot smaller. They just came out very different and also not as stretchy. And then there was this arrowhead, which first of all, I made a mistake in at the top because for whatever reason, there's 2 knots of red here. But then also I just realized I don't like the colors for it, so I just kind of dropped it. But I also finished this one and see, again, they're just a lot closer together, a lot less stretchy. And so I find this like an interesting showcase of progression of how my knot tension and in general, like how my knotting has changed. But yeah, if you want more about these 3 specific bracelets, I did a video about this a few years ago where I literally finished bracelets that I think I started in like 2009, 2010 maybe. So I'll leave that linked if you want to watch it. But yeah, moving on to this one. This is the vertical wave bracelet. But yeah, this is one of my first ever attempts at a vertical wave. I used 2 multicolored strings that went from like dark to light of that color. So we've got like a yellow that goes from dark to light and then purple that goes from dark to light. But this is definitely, you can see how bumpy that is. Ooh, my goodness. Bump central here. And also very stiff. I pulled my knots way too tight nowadays. my bracelets are not like this. This is another throwback, but this is a zigzag bracelet, really curled. It's supposed to be like this in a zigzag, but then it just curls into a little twist. It is down to knot tension, which again is something that only really comes with experience, and I perfected it over many years. I'm pretty sure if I made a bracelet like this now, it wouldn't curl. Kind of curious to test that out. Maybe I will. But it's down to knot tension, and it's also just down to how the pattern is. Like this part of the pattern wants to go that way, this part of the pattern wants to go that way, ends up twisting. I realized I wasn't showing you, but you get the idea. This one goes that way, this one goes that way, it twists. But this is one of those designs that I thought I created, which is really fun. Obviously I wasn't the first person to ever think of this idea of like, you know, making a candy stripe, then flipping it and making it again, but I invented it for myself. And when I tried it for the first time, it came from my brain. So that was really fun. This was my first time trying twisted ties. Or maybe not my first time actually, but like straight after my first time trying twisted ties. And I'm pretty sure I also used this exact bracelet to make a tutorial on bracelet look, and that is a photo tutorial. So this is actually like a twisted bracelet. You can pretty much just wear it like that, you know, and it'll be a bracelet. But nowadays I use this technique to create ties, and I made braided ties here. But I think I used these strings in this bracelet, the tutorial. So yeah, I posted a few photo tutorials on bracelet book before I ever ended up making video tutorials in English. That's kind of fun. This is one of my first ever attempts at reading a pattern. I think the colors are horrible because they're just so in your face, but the pattern is really cute. And again, yeah, this was my first ever attempt, well not ever, but like one of my first ever attempts at reading a pattern. And I felt like this was really complicated. This was really difficult for me to do. Again, I made this in Florida. I think a lot of my early bracelet making was done in Florida because that is just in 2009, 2010, and I think maybe even 2011. I used to go to Florida for like 2 months over the summer. I actually don't know why I did that. I was gonna say because like my parents wanted to get rid of me. Maybe that is the reason why, but me and my grandma would go visit my aunt in Florida. Maybe my parents genuinely just wanted to get rid of me for the summer. But I used to spend a lot of time there, and I was kind of bored because my aunt was like still, you know, doing her day-to-day life and working and stuff, and my grandma was just kind of doing housework, and I was just kind of there. And so I spent that time learning how to make friendship bracelets. I actually recorded a few videos on YouTube when I was there. Or maybe I'll insert some clips.
Hi, my name is Maria. This is my very first YouTube video. I picked out 3 threads, 3 different colored threads.
But that was, yeah, the first time I ever recorded a YouTube video was in Florida on my aunt's laptop. For one of my celebration videos, I think it was for 50,000 subscribers or something like that. I actually did a video where I watched my old videos and cringed at them, so if you want to watch that, you can. Enough time has passed that I can probably watch that video and cringe at it, so that's scary to think about. The passage of time is a weird concept, but I made this bracelet while I was in Florida. It was one of my first ever attempts at reading a pattern. I think it actually went quite well. It's a little bit bumpy on the sides, there are a few mistakes, but it is a well done bracelet, even though I don't like the colors, and the tie situation is also very questionable. This is my first, I think, attempt at making an alpha bracelet. As I was making the bracelet, I realized just how big it's gonna be because it didn't feel big to me as I was making the design. And then, you know, this is huge. It's a huge bracelet. The green part here is very much separated. Like that is its own thing. I can very much like just pull it out. You can pretty much not even see the black in the middle. It's just 2 greens, which is kind of funny. The black string is sticking out because I didn't pull it under before cutting it off. There's random pieces of red sticking out because again, I didn't thread it through correctly before cutting it off. But it is one of my most nostalgic bracelets because, you know, it was one of my first ever attempts at making an alpha bracelet. It's really cute to me. And for some reason, I also did Chinese staircase for the ties, which makes no sense. I've never worn this as a bracelet. It is huge, and it also doesn't make much sense. You know, it says dude. Like, it doesn't make much sense as a bracelet, but it was really fun to make. And yeah, I also made this in Florida. A lot of good bracelets of mine were made when I was in Florida. It was a time. I was very bored. I think this is my first attempt at making a bigger pattern. I remember looking at the pattern and just thinking that it is so extremely complicated. There cannot be, like, people don't make this. This is insane. Like, nobody will ever make this pattern because it's so big and so complicated. This is not a thing that people do. And then I tried it once I worked up some courage to do it, and it ended up being one of my most favorite patterns of all time. I even remade this pattern in a video as well. Made a video where I remade it. The time I remade it, it's like half the size again because of the knot tension. Like, look how stretchy this is and just how big the gaps are in between the knots. This isn't a bad thing. This is just a different way of knotting, and I find it interesting that like my knotting has changed so much much. But also when people send me messages and they're like, oh, well, why are my bracelets curling at the sides? I think it is a lot to do with knot tension, and you can see that I also have this problem. So I just kind of try to straighten it out. This one, don't really think I wore because the tie situation is also questionable. It's supposed to be a braid. It's not tied together at the end, and also even if it is one braid, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to wear it if it's a loop on the other side. The reason why you make two braids whenever you have a loop is because you put one through the loop and one not, and then you tie them together. So I don't think I ever wore this, but I made it, and I remember making this one in school, and I remember making this one specifically. It was around May, probably, because school was coming to an end, and I remember sitting in English class. It was pinned to my jeans, and I was making it under the desk secretively. I'm pretty sure everyone knew what I was doing, especially the teacher, but they all just kind of ignored it. This is another bracelet that I ended up trying that is a little bit bigger than something that I would normally go for. So I think this one was pretty much my first attempt at a bigger bracelet, but then this was just a really cool pattern that I wanted to try. I think it's really cool. I have fond memories of making this. This was also made in Florida, but if I were to make this pattern now, I probably would have chosen different colors. I don't love the color choices here, but also at the time I only really had a pack of like rainbow colors and that was it, so it's not like I had much choice to begin with. But it is also huge. I'm curious how big this bracelet would be if I make it nowadays. I'm guessing half that thickness because the knots are quite stretchy, as I said. Then we have this bracelet, which is actually one that I think I made on this channel. If I'm not mistaken, I think I filmed a knot with me video for it. This is one of my only attempts at making a 1-2-1-2 pattern. A 1-2-1-2 pattern is a pattern that has most, if not all, of the knots being forward, backward, or backward, forward knots. And I hate those kinds of patterns because you can't really segment knot them very well. You just kind of have to make them row by row, which is inherently a lot longer than making it segment knotted. So this just took a really long time, and I can't say that I love how it turned out. It's cute, but it was not worth the effort, in my opinion. But I still have very fond memories of it. I was making it for Christmas time, and I love a good Christmas bracelet. A lot of people associate friendship bracelets with the summer, and I do love a good like spring, summer design with, I don't know, insects and berries and flowers. But I think there is a charm to wintry patterns as well, and I really like this one. For the last two patterns, I have some proper nostalgia. This is one that I made for Stefan. This is Frankie from One Piece. It's very wonky, just the nose sticks out. This is a lot thicker than this, and also just in general, like you can see how his eye is sticking out. This bit is just like, it's really wonky and weird, and I think it is also a knot tension thing because this is quite hard. I had so much fun making it, and you can still very much tell that it's Frankie, and it's a very cute pattern. I was showing Stefan a picture of all of the bracelets that I had collected for this video earlier, and he sent me like a series of messages being like, oh my god, that's where that one is. I was looking for it for so long that I had completely gaslit myself into believing that it doesn't exist. He was like, I'm sure if it did exist, I would have found it. So like I gaslit myself into thinking that it wasn't a thing, that I made it up. And then I just randomly sent him a picture of it. That was kind of funny. But yeah, I don't know how it ended up with me because obviously I gave it as a gift to him. And he still has a lot of the friendship bracelets that I made for him. There was also like this giant One Piece bracelet, just like the logo of One Piece, which was absolutely huge, that I made for him. And I think he has that. So I don't know how this ended up with me, but it did. And I have fond memories of making it. I think I should make some more anime characters. In my next video that I do about my bracelet collection, I'm going to show you my favorite bracelets of all time. And one of those is a wall hanging of Luffy, which is also from One Piece. So you'll get to see that there if you haven't already seen that. And the final one that I'm going to show you today is this cringe. You can guess the year when this was made just by looking at that design. If you were alive at that point, you remember that these little mustaches were very popular around 2013. Oh, it brings back memories. I remember taking photos at school with this bracelet. I actually made like probably 5 of these in different colors. This is just the only one that I have left because I think I gave away all the other ones. We would take photos with these bracelets, and we would also just take a bunch of photos with mustaches drawn onto ourselves with Sharpie, which we ended up getting told off for by our teachers. Yeah, it's a little bit wonky because obviously there's quite a lot more blue on this side than there is on this side, but I love it nonetheless. It's a very cute bracelet. Thank you for walking down memory lane with me. That's not something I do very frequently because it's kind of hard to get all the bracelets organized and back into the box. So this video was a lot of fun to film. I hope that you found a pattern that maybe you've liked and want to recreate. I'll try to leave all the patterns linked in the description. There might be some that I don't quite remember the pattern number for. If you know the pattern number for one of these, leave it in the comments and I'll update the description. I'll also leave the playlist with all of my collection videos in the description if you want to see more of these videos. The next collection video that I'm going to do is going to be all about my most favorite favorite bracelets of all time, so stay tuned for that. My book, The Beginner's Guide to Friendship Bracelets, is now out worldwide. You can buy it anywhere you typically buy books, and there is also a direct link in the description. Before I go, I also want to give a special shout out to my patrons and especially my top supporters. It is with their support that I'm able to continue creating videos on this channel, and I truly appreciate that. If you also want to become a patron, the link to that is in the description. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you make any bracelets based on it, then please send them to me on Instagram, on Discord, anywhere. I would love to see them. And I'll see you in my next video as well. Bye!